Yes, it's not for each, but it's up to you.
Okay.
If you know that this component, for example, let's say you have to, let's say here, he's rendering the allies here. Let's say I have another list, another to-do list. Just a second. I'm paying. You have another to-do list, and you need to use the same structure, which is this one. Okay? You want to use the same structure. Let's say you have another component called header tree or something. It's another part of the application. You need to copy this and put it there. And every time you need to change the row or something, you need to change it here and change it there. Why not building? I will do it now. I will create. No, I would just want to fork this.
We should make editor.
Yeah, edit. Yeah. So I have the header here. So instead of putting this code here, I can create a new file, call it list item.js. Generally, I like to name it like with capital letter in the beginning because it's kind of a class, and each file contains just one component, so it's kind of mapping to a class. Did I just rename it or what? This is weird. Okay, let's try to open it again. No, not this one. Let's say new file. List item with capital letter .js. Yes. So I will say import React from React function list item. Did you think about something? You remember that you are using, we have been like using just the class so far, but we covered like in the beginning the function component, functional component, creating like component using functions. We are not using it anymore. Why? You should use it. Yeah, you remember functions? You can inside the function you just return like JSX.
Yes.
But now we are using just classes. Why? What's the difference? No one asked me about that actually, and that's really important. Mainly, a function, it's just a function. Every time you want to render new thing or there is like new props, because I will just try to code this and let's discuss that. So it will take props. Here we will return something. I will copy it because I need to. I will copy the same thing. I needed to render this thing. Okay, I will just do this. So, and here it needs object, and so let's import out my component here to do list item from list item. Okay, and here I will render list item. Okay, but I needed to get the object and index equal index. And here I have props.index, props.object, yeah, props.object. I need this props.date, and let's pass the date here. Date equal this.state.date. Let's try. Hello. Element type is invalid, expecting a string. So there is problem here. Element type invalid. From there, I can see that React is not figuring out this class when it's come from. So let's try to do something. Let's try to do. What's there? Exactly. So here, this is undefined
Export.
because I need to export. Either I put it here, export default here, and you can see here. So now I can reuse this component. I can render it anywhere else. And if I want to edit this code or the render, let's say I want to switch or flip or change this to green, I don't need to go to the header component and start reading it. Imagine this is a new project and you don't know what's happening here, and it would be like we have like React component with like 1,000 like lines of code. It's really big, so you need to come here and try, and that's too much. So we have really small components, and also the list. It's better to put it inside list, like a list, and import it here, and the list will import the list item instead. So you have really like composable code. You can reuse it everywhere. So yeah. Do you have any question about that? Oh, and that's really important. This line of code. As I told you before, something I don't think I told you, but yeah, each time we said we run set state or React runs set state, the component will re-render. Okay, but there is something. We have a hierarchy. We have a component rendering 2 components. This component rendering 2 components. This component rendering 3 components. So we have a lot of components getting like rendered. Let's say inside the tree, you call set state in this component, and this component has like subtree, so it has like a lot of children.
We cannot say that. No props.
What?
So yeah, inside the components, when you have these things, we cannot call set state here, I think.
What do you mean? I didn't get the question.
Like when you say state, set state is coming from the tree up to bottom. And I think you can use the props.
Yeah, you use the props to pass information.
Yeah.
But let's say we have a component.
Yeah.
And inside the component, you run set state. Inside this component.
Yeah.
But this component is already rendering other components. Forget about it. The component in the render, for example, this component here is rendering this stuff, and it is rendering list items and stuff. Every time you call set state, the whole subtree will be re-rendered. The whole subtree. Just imagine if you have a really big application, the whole subtree, it will be re-rendered. So when you call set state 2 times, like here, it will re-render 2 times. Why not putting it inside one line? It's just an object. You can just do this. It's just an object. Update them all in one line. It's just an object. Clear about that?
Yeah.
This is really important because we are rendering 2 times. And there is also one thing. Let's say here, React will render this, and it will jump to execute this, the next line, which is in line 40. Okay? If we will do something here, we will be working on the new rendered components or the old, or still like this, or React still didn't re-render the components. What will be the state? Because when React runs set state, it will queue or enqueue like the changes. So React will start like every time you call set state, you have like a lot of components calling set state. There is one queue, and React will put all the set state inside the queue, and it will execute them like one by one. Why? Because you cannot render the whole thing just like synchronously. It's asynchronous. You remember synchronous versus asynchronous? When it's synchronous, you do this, it will happen, done. When it's asynchronous, you don't know exactly when the operation will finish. This is the same thing with React. When you call set state, you don't know when React will finish rendering. Maybe you have really big list items. So you cannot assume that React will change this now. So if you do something now here, maybe we are still like living or still executing the old kind of component and not the new rendered component, because React is still trying to re-render, or maybe there is other components that React needs to render and not this one, so there is like more priorities. Clear about that? So when you want to execute something after React done with rendering, what do you need to do? You got my idea that you cannot execute something after React is rendering. So you are saying like if I call set state, React will render, and here I'm already in the new rendered component. That's not true. There is no assumption. There is no guarantee that you don't have like any. For example, I don't know, like if you are outside of the callback, you don't know when the callback will get executed. You got my idea a little bit, or
Yeah, you mean
I'm not
that
sure. Understand.
And I think we placed the set state at the bottom of the function of use promises.
it's not just it's not even about promises, because you cannot rely on promises. It's kind of UI like event, and it's not really about you. This is internal React thing. So we using promises to wait for what? A React rendering? But it's just like too complex. It's something related to React. You should not like think about rendering. What I'm saying is between calling set state and rendering the new component, there is some time.
Yes.
Between this time, maybe you want to run some code, but you are making the assumption that this code will be rendered after the rendering,
Yes.
or the code will be executed after the rendering. That's not true, because React needs some time.
Yes.
JavaScript is faster than React. React will be rendering the UI, and you need to run something after. So you have like set state, and you have like set state here, and you have your code here. When you call set state, React needs sometimes. After set state, you execute a function. The function will be rendered in the context of the old component, because React is still rendering the new component.
Yes.
You got the idea?
Yes. Yeah.
That's clear?
So what's the solution?
Exactly. So the solution is there is a second parameter. You can pass it here in the set state.
Yeah.
So let's say I will refactor this code. Okay, so this is the first object, the first parameter. Okay? You can pass another function here. Or let's pass another function. In this function will be executed when React
Finish.
done rendering with the update caused by this set state.
Yes.
So each time there is set state, there is new rendering. So just for example, React will assign an ID to this set state. So each set state is new rendering, and there is a callback associated with this rendering. So if you have like two set state, this will render two times. It will render here, and also it will re-render again, because you are calling set state two times.
Okay, you didn't put it inside
What?
the callback.
No. What do you mean? I'm just like re-rendering the component two times.
Yeah, in this case we don't define. So we need to define this.
So when you say this, second, let's go back to the. So this is like the old code. This is the old code. So he's calling let's say two times. Let's say first time. Second time. And you say test. You do like this. first time, second time, and there is sometimes in between. Okay, let's JavaScript. Or exactly. Let's so I will do this just to measure the time needed by React. So we have like here first, okay, first, second, second, and here let's try like just random. Let's call it normal. So essentially what the console.time do is just like when you call console.time for the first time, and it will start counting, and when you do like time end, it will stop the timing and it will console.log. Since you did the time, this is like what, like how much like time passed. So just to measure out between two lines of code how much like time JavaScript took.
47.
What?
Only seconds.
Yeah. What?
Line 47.
Yes. End. Yes. Thank you. So let's try. But we need the console. So try test. I shouldn't use yours. What? I don't think it's about refreshing. I think. You remember each child in an array should have unit.
I got this with
No, still. I don't think it doesn't print something. You should print it. I don't really remember. But it's from the console, so it should print something. Yeah, that's really. That's weird. Console, and right. Yeah. So it's an outdated API or let's try it on Firefox. Wow. Yeah, it's going crazy. It's going crazy. And because of the recording, that's the problem.
no.
Yeah, because I should. Okay, I was thinking about using this API, but let's just use the performance API. I just want to show you. Yeah, let's use this one. So let's use T0, T1. Let's say normal. Okay. Let's try this at least. Yeah, it's almost 0. But if we do the same thing here, so let's this one. Let's put this one here and this one here. T1. I will remove this one. First run the test, random date. So normal was no. The fuck is this? No. That's first re-render. What? Yeah. So we have normal, it's 0, so it's almost 0 millisecond between this and this. But between this one and this one. So before rendering set state and when React calls our callback. It's 2 and something. For JavaScript, 2 milliseconds it's something. It's too much kind of. But this is just because we have really like small application. If we have like a lot of items, it would even take more. So let's say I will do application. We have this one. Let's copy and paste. Let's just let's say a test. Now it's 30. And we will keep adding more stuff to the item because React needs more time to render the items. When it's 50, it needs, for example, it needs like 1 millisecond for each item. If it's 10, it's 10 milliseconds. If it's 20, and we go. Imagine like how many posts Facebook has, thousands of posts, and every time you render them all. So you cannot say that the thing that I'm trying to emphasize here, you cannot say, okay, after updating this, execute this. You cannot do that. You need to put the thing that you want to execute after the update here. That was my idea. It's kind of rare to need that, but just to have an idea. Because we are trying to prepare you for the kind of working environment and stuff, and they will ask you a lot of these questions when it's come to interviews. Because a lot of people make the assumption that React is just, you call set state, it will render, and you can execute it. No. React is asynchronous. You don't know when your component will re-render. Clear? Okay. Anything to ask about that? Let's review your code. It's yours. Hmm? So we have index, rendering up, rendering to-do list. So a lot of small components. Suddenly, really fucking big component. That's not good. That's not
This
good.
is the state.
Simple.
You can't blame me for the state.
I can't blame you for everything.
Okay.
Every component should be smaller. You need to have smaller
But
components.
it's set. It's set. Put it in the state. Put the list in the state.
Yeah, but for example, let's say the render function. You could render another component here. And pass it as props. Pass all the state as props.
That's also my question to you. If you can see at line 77,
Yeah?
I have a component,
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the... Yeah.
but I couldn't use it the correct way.
Why?
Because when I change, I do the unclick and
Yeah?
how do I
Because
change state?
because you didn't bind it. Did you bind it?
That's fine.
You can pass it. I didn't know. So when you're passing parameters here,
Yeah.
this is JavaScript. When you pass parameters or props are values. And the value can be anything. Anything. Numbers, string, arrays, object, functions. So you can pass a function to a component. And the component inside will call the function. Did you get the idea? So you pass the function as a props. Let's say you pass a props called onClick handler or props called update state. And inside it, the to-do list component will render the state, will call the function. So render the state, that's good. You got my idea?
Could you show it?
Yeah. Today I will try to code a React application with you in a proper way, and we can discuss all these things. You can have like examples and stuff, and you can ask me. We will try to do it in the kind of proper way.
Because I have the checkbox component, it's working fine.
Yeah.
But I also wanted the to-do to work, and inside the to-do have the checkbox.
Yeah.
But to get that to work.
Oh.
Because I have the state in the constructor.
So there's also second thing that I was talking about. Yeah, we'll discuss that in details because I will try to do your homework again in more complex way, kind of, so you can see the differences. But I was talking about functional and class components. When you have like here, list item is a function. So what we are missing here? We are missing something. We have here, when we talked about React, we talked about three things. Four things. Rendering, like displaying things to the screen using the render function. The second thing is passing props. So you can pass kind of parameters like functions, but to React components, and they will return these data or display them. The third thing is the state. So you can hold the state and change and react to kind of changes. The fourth thing is what?
Binding.
No, binding is just JavaScript. It's a way to avoid, but it's not really specific to React. Four things: render, props, constructor is just JavaScript.
And
Breaking into components.
Life cycle.
Nice.
That's really specific to React, the life cycle. You remember that? Remember the clock example?
I know life cycle is measured for the business people.
What do you mean?
Not in React.
we didn't talk about
You mentioned it.
We talked about it a lot. Component did mount, component will mount.
Yeah.
We did that a lot.
Last week,
Yeah.
we talked on.
Just a second. Yes. So you remember this component, the counter? We have state initial counter, we pass it to this component, so it will start from 0 or 10 or something. And we initialize the state using props. And we have two life cycles here. When the component did mount, it's like when the component done mounting like I'm already in the DOM. It will mount it, like put it inside the wall, like mount something. So it will did mount, and when the component will end mount. End mounting. So when you put the component and when you remove it. Let's say you have, for example, the FS in your case of the to-do list. If you have the list item, you let's just try it. Let's try it.
How much do you work with
A lot. It's so crucial. As I told you before, you remember the Messenger or Facebook case or posts. When you click on a chat, you have the users, but you don't have all the messages of all the users. So when you click on a user, you display the chat box, and you start fetching the messages. And when you scroll up, React will Facebook will start fetching more. So this is like using lifecycle. So it's really important. Yeah. So in your case here, yeah, the to-do list, the header. No, actually, yeah, it's this one. So can I use lifecycle here using this functional component? I cannot use that because lifecycles are methods, are class methods. So I cannot put the class method inside of list item. This is the first downside of functional component. Second thing, how I can access the state. I use this dot state and this dot set state. So these are method inherited like by my class from the component class because we do like extends class. Can I use this here? I cannot because there is no inheritance and there is no this at all. There is this, but it's just it's not it's JavaScript this and not the object oriented this. Is it clear? So, but you will say now why we should use this approach. Why we should use the functional component. Why we are not using the class component all the time? Because this component is really simple. When you have a lot of components that are functional component, it's better. Because there is no this, there is no binding, there is no anything. So it's so clear, it's so small, it's just a function. But when you have a class, it's really big, life cycle, state, props, constructor, extending, class, render method, more complex. So generally, my advice is to like write your component using this approach, using the functional approach when you can. When you need state, when you need life cycle, switch to the class component. But this is really simple and it's really better in the long term because it's so simple. You can edit it, you can copy it, it's just a function. You can avoid a lot of bugs, a lot of like gotchas and stuff.
So, do you change sometimes when you're working in a function?
A lot.
Okay, now I need to set state. Oops. Back, I need to make it to class.
Yeah, I do that. But generally, if you follow some patterns, you don't need that. If you start or you architecture your project before starting coding the project, you don't need that. Because you will have a clear overview on which component and what component needs and stuff. You will have like clear overview. I have this component and this component. This is why every time, like when you see the thinking,
Depends on the project that you do.
yeah, when you see like this one, they break the UI into a component hierarchy. So when you have like an idea about an application or you are working in a company and the designer will give you like Photoshop or sketch files with the design and everything, start looking at the design and break the UI into components. Like this is like self-contained component. This is also another component. This is also another component. This like shot is another component. The search is another component. The ads it's another component. Post, exactly. The footer is another component. The model, like when you click something, the model will just open. That's another component. So try to think this way and plan. So I will have this component, this component, this component, this component. After that, you will start coding with confidence. You know all what you need. Everything is clear. You know the goal. I need to build this component and this component, and not just starting from scratch and trying to achieve something. You don't know what you are trying to achieve. You don't know.
But the where I had major issue was importing my to-do list component into the main app component. That was where I had problems because I break them into different components, but merging them so that it will be rendered in one main app component was the problem I had.
Yeah, but for example, we did this here. Here we have like the index.
Yeah.
We
So,
have.
and you render app there.
You want to render it here?
And you render that app there.
Yeah.
That one is straightforward. But if you go back to the to do this,
You can do like this here. You can render two apps, for example.
two components.
I can render wherever I want. I can put even a React component here. Of course, the result of the render, not the.
Okay, for example, now you can render app.js component there and to do lists.
Just a second.
Okay.
The component you made.
Yeah. For example, now I have like a lot of like separate applications running together. I have counter here. I have like to do text. I can add to do here, and I can add another to do here. I'm running two versions of the same like component, and each component is rendering a counter, and I can even like render a counter here. So import. It's not working here. You know why? Because I didn't pass initial value, and initial value would be undefined. And when you try to add something to undefined, it will give you none, not a number. So what's the solution? Well, there is two things we didn't cover in React, and they are the prop types. What the prop type means. So your component, it's like a function. It will take props, which is kind of parameters. Okay? It will take props, they are kind of parameters. You just is it clear? Props are like parameters. But sometimes you don't know like which props you need. For example, let's say you are in a really big project. Let's say you work on Netflix or on Google or on Facebook. Facebook has like 30,000 components. 30,000 components. As far as I remember, it's 30,000 or 2,000. I don't remember. It's really a big difference, but let's say 2,000. I don't remember, but let's say 2,000. 2,000 components. It's too much. 2,005. That's too much. So, for example, let's say you are working on a project and you need the component that render the shot or the post, and you want to know like which parameter you want to pass, which props you want to pass. You should pass the author or the commenter or what. You don't know exactly what's the naming convention that is used inside this component. So it's kind of a little bit difficult to do that. So React has its own way of doing that. You need to declare all the props that your component needs. You declare a list. My component needs this and this and this. Please pass these props. So my component will function. For our component here, it needs the initial counter. And yeah, so here we have the timing. Let's say you want to update the component each 3 seconds, each 4 seconds. We don't know. Let's put a parameter here. Let's put this. Let's put a props. This dot props dot update interval. And let's put update in. I will just delete these two because it's not. Let's say update interval. It's each 500 milliseconds. Okay, I need also the initial counter. Let's say 5. So now it's each. So I'm trying to customize the application, the component. Now let's say this counter component, it's one of the 2,000 or 3,000 components that I have, and a new developer wants to use it. He doesn't know what props. Is it like initial counter, or it's initial count, or this component accept an initial count or not? We don't know. So the way to do this is to use something called dot prop type. I guess prop type. I don't really remember. That's weird. I use them every day.
But this is a very good example showing.
Yeah, prop types. Prop types.
Using it up all the time.
What?
This is a good example showing that you've been working with React.
Yeah, like I use with this prop types
Do it all
every
the
day.
time.
Every day. For 1 year and a half. I've been like in this company for almost 1 year, and I've been working with React for 1 year and a half. I use this every day. I create component every day, and I still need to look at this. So it's completely normal to search on for stuff. So yeah, there is something called prop types, and prop types we use them to validate. or to list or to whitelist the props that your component needs. But you need to install a separate package. We will see how or why we need this package. So the first thing is to install it. So it's called prop types. Yarn add prop type or npm prop types. Before this prop types, because we use some functions from the prop types library, it was included inside React. So you could do React dot prop types. Now they kind of extracted it into a separate. So if you see all React code, you don't need to include this library. You just use React prop types. But now we need to do this. Import prop types from prop types. So before it was like this, it was included inside React. It's like React.component, React.prop types. But after that, they just think and they said, like, even with Facebook, they said, it's wrong. We should not include prop types inside React because it's kind of separating. It's not part of React. It's validation. It's helper functions. It's not really about rendering or anything. Why we should include it inside React? So they extracted it into a separate package. Okay. So you do like counter.prop types, and you do like this. It's an object. You list all the props that you need. So here we need two props, this one and update interval. So we say initial counter update interval, and there will be values here. Okay, so what's the values? You do prop types dot the value that you need. For example, initial count is a number. Okay, so we say number. Update interval, it's also a number. Okay. Now, when you need to know what this component will consume or what's like the needed props for this component, you check just this value. It will list all the components that we need. And even better, for example here, because I'm using WebStorm, let's assume so. So you'll see, it will suggest like 2. Because the WebStorm will try to read that, and so if you use like an editor, it will suggest that you use like one of these or something, that you have 2 props. But let's say you don't pass these props, the component will not function because there will be not a number and stuff. So there is another thing. So if you want this props to be required, you say is required. What's happening? React scripts, so let's type 1. So you have like, we run the server again. What's up? Just a second. Even with 16 gigabyte of RAM, that's hard. It's 16 gigabyte of RAM. Just a second. Something will happen. What?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's really good. Yeah, the recording software is just eating all of it.